this. Oh no.
No.
We're live. We're live.
Live.
Ah, there you are.
That's a show entrance right there. That album. You know how Holly it is. You got to grab that audience. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a professional. Can you tell?
Hey, yes, I can. Hey, what's with the beard? I haven't seen this.
Right.
Pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you. It's takes a little while for it to come in to actually look like a beard, but I've given it enough time. It's part of the process, part of the strategy, part of the blending in and in hiding, right? It's a camouflage. It's a point of identification. I've noticed that most, if not all, Armenian apostolic priests have beards. I'm trying to think if I've seen. I think there's some that are clean shaved. I'm not sure, but it's very common. And
we just met with one last week that had a beard. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like it's, and actually, I think this doesn't happen very often. Most people know I'm not Armenian, but you're not Armenian. But with the beard, I've had a few like, are you Armenian? So maybe it makes me look Armenian. I don't know. All right, sir. I have so much to talk about, but so in the comment section already, everybody's jumped over from my Bible every morning session, and Mom here is asking, pick it up where you left off. I was telling about my trip, but okay. I'll get to that. Maybe toward the end, I'll do more of the updating. But I do want to get to this topic because something that I encountered, some of my trip this is associated. This is related to some of the updates that I was going to give. So we'll just get into this topic. Joel, I will toss it to you to introduce the subject matter.
Well, it's back to the old days of the Occupy Wall Street, or even back when I can remember all the college campuses when I was a kid, protests over Vietnam War back then. I don't even remember what Occupy Wall Street was protesting, but now we've got
the bank failures of 2008 or something. I think something like the housing collapse, the 2008 bubble.
I don't know.
Just discontent. That's all it was. Just
right. Yeah. And not that it's just flavor of the month. Flavor of the month is now the Israel-Palestine conflict. Supposedly that's what it's all about. But you don't have to look far under the surface to find out what this is really about. There's two things I think it's really about. One is you could say anti-Zionism if you want, but it's really anti-Semitism. And it's funny because here we have a war that actually Hamas started, that Israel is prosecuting and winning, but yet they are not allowed to win a war. They're the only country in the world that's allowed to be attacked, go to war, but not win. So it's funny. Nobody was screaming about Artsakh 6 months ago, right? There were no big protests. There were no campuses occupied because who cared? There's Armenians being forced out of their homeland. Who cares? But boy, have Jewish people do it to anybody. Can't have that. So that's to me the first and foremost part of it. But also, actually, I wouldn't even say it's foremost, because I think the foremost part might be we have a communist revolution in our country. It's going on, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody in the Christian community, that's for sure. And we're not going to know what hit us after this election, one way or the other. We're not going to know what hit us. If the far left wins this next election, we will never have another free and fair election. If they don't, and if Orange Man wins, we're going to have violence a lot. We're going to have political violence like we haven't known since I don't know when. So maybe the Civil War. So, and I think we might have a civil war. And, there's nothing worse than a civil war. Wars are bad, but a civil war traditionally, historically, have been very bad. When you have brother going against brother, there's another dynamic in there that gets pretty darn nasty. So yeah, so I think it's really important to talk about, and I don't think anybody's really talking about it. I mean, the news is, the media is, and they're slanting it towards, Hamas and protesters from the far left. So, and actually, I think there might even be a third in the civil wars going on right now on the left, and that's where the violence might erupt the most. If things don't go their way, the left always eats its own, and you can see it in these protests, and how the Biden administration and Columbia University, the state of New York, city of New York, LA, all these politicians and mayors and presidents, university presidents have been forced to call in the police and get these people out of there, even though these are the people that they have been beholden to. This is the far left. These are radical Marxist professional. These aren't students who just decided to set up these giant tent cities, and everything. These are professional protesters. These are really nasty people. These are the people that, will eventually get very violent. And they have now been turned on by the people that they thought they owned. So I don't know. I think it's a huge story. I think it's I've always said, what has happened in my lifetime is slowly the radical left has been chipping away at the foundations of America. And about 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, they started taking sledgehammers to the foundations and the bearing walls of America. And I think the people who've done that have a sense that this is their chance. This is their final. I used to laugh at the people that said, the John Birch Society or whoever was that saw a commie under every rock, right? That was always a joke when I was growing up. Oh yeah, right. That could never happen in the United States. Communism could never happen. But way back when, Nikita Khrushchev was banging his shoe on the table, telling John Kennedy that your grandchildren will live under communism because we won't stop. You will, we won't. And I think coming up, we're going to have that culminate and come to a head. And how it's going to go, Michael, I don't know. You're more of an optimist than I am, but I'm one of those guys that think I've just finished putting an addition on this house, and we had to pay a lot of attention to that foundation. And if that we already had a crack in the wall on the new foundation, so you can say all you want. Oh, but look at this nice room look at this nice den we just put in. Look at this nice, But if you didn't get that foundation right, it's not going to go well eventually. So I'm really, in a lot of ways, I'm thinking, Joel, you should be thankful you get to live in a time where God is maybe, the forces of the evil one are lining up against us. And that's something every Christian, I have a pastor, our new pastor says, if you're a soldier of Christ, you want to be in the battle. You don't want to, he's all these people that are moving out of California, he has no sympathy for them. What kind of soldier leaves the battlefield when the battle is engaged? So of course I shot back at him. Okay, what kind of general are you going to be? Are you going to be can I follow you?
That's good.
Okay. Don't tell me what kind of soldier I am. Tell me what kind of general you are. Are you up for it? Are you ready to lead? And that's what I'm skeptical about. How engaged are the rest of the body of Christ going to be in this when all these forces line up against us? So that's my take in a nutshell.
Very nice. I have 1,000 things I want to say. Let's start with.
Hey, I'm sorry, but Jacqueline, I know knows about this stuff. Jacqueline and I are at the same time. So you're right. It was filled with tension and violence.
Right.
And
lived history.
Yep. And it was not a fun time. It was not a fun time for me to be a young, back in the 60s. I was born in 1960. So I was a young child, and it was a scary time.
Hmm.
Scare time.
Well, the good news about those abandoning the battle is some of the scriptural precedent. I mean, Gideon got rid of most of the fighters.
Yeah.
Like, nah, you guys are no good. No, you guys are no good. It didn't take many to be
Right.
victorious. And also in King David's time, there were these concessions made. Like, if you have any wavering, if you've just married, with etc. It's like they were allowed to leave, right? So let them go. But the warriors that are ready and equipped, that's what they're born for. If you are born a soldier, it is in the heat of battle when you are fulfilled, right? So,
And that's fine
man,
if they want to leave the battlefield, that's fine. My only request is you not shoot your soldiers from behind when they are engaged in the enemy,
well,
and that's what tends to happen too.
and there's an important distinction. Yeah, leaving the battlefield, they should never have been on the battlefield, right? So
Right.
the leaving is prior to, right? It's like
Right.
you can't be
But you know how it is
standing
in
next
Christian
shoulder to shoulder. Go ahead.
right. We saw this during the lockdowns and everything. There were very few people that were willing to stand and keep their churches open and all this stuff. And what happened? All the other accommodators, all the other people with courage issues, let's say, they went after the people that Dennis Prager says courage. When you have courage in the face of a threat, it angers people who don't have courage more
Those
than
are
the
the first
threat.
ones to turn on you, right? Those are the
Yeah,
first ones to turn on you. Yeah.
right. So we shot a lot of people in the back who were standing between us and, metaphorically speaking, and the threat. And the Christian community turned on the people that were courageous enough to stand against this. So, anyways,
This is perfectly analogous to what I'm going through at this point in the process of my project. It's like I have haters rising from within the Armenian community, right? The opposition and the doubters, and some of it's totally understandable. 100 years has gone by, and nothing's happened. I'm like, oh, you're just another guy saying. I'm like, this is something different. All right, so I'm going to engage this topic by updating on part of my trip. So I land I land in New York, and my one of my collaborators are like, you should go visit Colombia while you're there, right? You should go visit Colombia. And it was not on my calendar. I'm like, I could, but I want to go over here because I don't have that much time, and I need to get up to Boston. But on the last 2.5 days of my trip, I was at Georgetown, right? And it's the same, right? These are the same institutions. They have the same infrastructure, the academia. And the thing is, these institutions, sorry, getting my focus, have kicked God out of the classroom, right? God is not a part of these institutions. They have actively omitted God or any reference to something called truth, right? They just, especially in the history department, as I've been working with, my historians have told me, like, well, when you're talking amongst the historians or the history students, like, maybe don't use that word truth so much. It's like, because they have a problem picking sides, if you will. It's like there are some radicals in history that are objectively did important things, but like, well, that's offensive to the other side or whatever, right? It's this spinelessness, right, that I detect. And these they're historians are important because they are delving into the facts, but when it comes to interpreting them and demonstrating, uh, right versus wrong, they can't, right? They just don't tread. They don't tread in that realm, even to the point of, well, so I show up at Georgetown, and connect with my two historians, and one of them is is the advisor, and he's my age, and he's my friend, and the other historian is my historian, and he's the student of the advisor. And so it's this dynamic. I have a friend that I want to hang out with, and then I want my historian that I want to hang out with, and they have their own relationship, advisor to student, and it's different. And so it gets tangled. So I got to meet with this one first, and then that one, and so I finally am able to connect with the professor or the advisor, and he's Turkish, and he's head of, like, he's a chair of two separate departments within the university. And he says, "Hey, I was thinking, you want to go? Do you want? We just like had 3 hours to hang out. Do you want to go to the protest camp, the protest site?" And I'm like, "Sure." I don't know which one he's talking about. And so we take a walk, and it's not at Georgetown, but it's in walking distance from Georgetown, George Washington University, which is also
Yes.
in the DC. I think
Right.
it's technically within District of Columbia. So we walk to Georgetown University, or to George Washington, and we go, and there's the encampment. So I I turn on the camera. There's some police at the entrance, etc. And we walk through, and it's not, there's not a protest going on. It was, I guess, the night before, and so this is essentially the aftermath of one of the big protests that have been happening. And this is at George Washington University, and I'm filming, and there's tents set up. And one of my comments, or one of my thoughts, is, well, a lot of these tents look exactly the same, as if they were distributed by somebody. Right here, we'll provide all the stuff for you, and you guys just occupy them. Right? Okay. This seems prearranged and pre-coordinated. It's not this spontaneous youth thing, right? It's funded, and there's stuff going on behind the scenes. Then,
Exactly.
and my professor friend, he's like, "See, this is peaceful, and this is, and the faculty that are opposing this, it's just disheartening that the faculty are coming out against some of the fact, blah, blah, blah," right? So I'm getting this inside, and he says, "I'm not sure what your politics are. I didn't know if you wanted to come here or not." I'm like, "Dude, my project transcends all of these issues. So I'm fine." And so I go in there and get some really good footage of the aftermath. There were these barricades that had been put around the perimeter of this particular quad. And I guess the night before, they had just grabbed all the barricades and pulled them to the center and build a pile of them. And it's like their sculpture. And that's what some even says, this is going to be in the Smithsonian one day, right? It's a pile of barricades, and it's epitomizing a moment in history, and it is a historic moment. And we don't.
Plus, if they have their way, the Smithsonian will not be standing. So
right, the contradiction.
Yeah.
So, but. And then there's the statue of George Washington at the entrance of this quad area, and it's got stickers on it, and it's painted and spray painted, and then the plaque says Genocidal University or something like that, and so I do a little commentary, video, and something just struck me in the middle of this. Here we are. That was like 2 days ago, April 2024. And there's a statue of George Washington standing in the middle of George Washington University in the neighborhood of Georgetown. Like, this is President George Washington, the first president of the United States of America. And that statue in April of 2024 is still standing, right? This radical movement institution. They may have slapped some stickers on it and painted it the other day, but to date, as statues have been being pulled down across the country for the last several years, this one's still standing. All right, so it's this contradiction right in the middle of all this. It's like as if somebody in the administration is like, yeah, let them do it, but make sure they don't pull down the statue. It's George Washington University,
right?
The name of the school. They have this conflict, this dilemma, right? It's like, we're against America. Wait, we go to George Washington. We decided to go to George Washington University, right? They made the decision to go.
Right.
So this is just some of my observations.
Okay.
Right.
Which in a way, it's encouraging to know that they still have enough rational thought process to do that. But are they really students at George Washington? Are these people, or are they not professional protesters funded by these shadowy groups?
That's been documented, right? And the thing is, there are those that are paid professionals, but they're paid professionals that also are networked into the universities. And so I don't. I mean, I didn't see any protests going on myself, and so as far as gauging who is a student and who is not, I wasn't a part of that. So, um, but it was very. I I personally love that my project has brought me to a point where on one day I'm in an Armenian Apostolic Church worshiping God and talking to the priest about Solomon Talerian and his heroic nature. And the next day, I'm standing at the heart of a leftist movement protest with a arguably professor on the left, and he's my friend, and we are engaging, and he recognizes the importance of Solomon Talerian's story. Right, both of these like completely you know divergent persons in our culture are united in, yes, me and my efforts in pursuing this. And it's just very exciting to be alive for such a time as this. I mean, um, I know I have my detractors, and I will have more opposition as this moves forward. But the people on my side, the coalitions forming behind me, are across the spectrum. So I am the optimist, and I think these protests are proving the failure of the secular experiment, right? In particular, because the secularists have claimed that they're the ones who really know how to bring unity among differing viewpoints, right? They're the ones that claim, those religious right, they're haters, they exclude all these other worldviews, and they're the haters, and we must oppose them. And so it's the rational secular, like, no, we can all agree to get along, except now that they exclude Jews from their schools. Right.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Who likes to exclude Jews? Who likes to exclude them? Who likes to have a problem with anybody? Right.
Yeah.
And it's even Jews that are excluding Jews. Right. And it's like,
Well,
whoa,
yeah,
this
no
is
kidding. And what does from the river to the sea mean? And where are the hate speech laws? Is my question. I mean, everyone, we want freedom of speech. No, you don't. You're the ones that enforce, you call for hate speech laws for anybody that you disagree with. So yeah, you're right. And that's why I say it's highlighting the contradiction and the absolute irrationality and as people in the comments were saying, the evil of their worldview. And it's a worldview that has taken God out of the picture.
right.
And with that, when you
There's
take
no
God out of the
moral.
picture,
There's no
there's no
morality.
moral.
There's no
No.
line that you can
If
draw.
there's nothing higher than yourself, and then it's all your base instincts and nature is unredeemed and undealt with, and it's chaos. It's violence. It's filth. It's you go against all the things that you purport to be for because you have no moral center. So, and when you have no moral center, any force or anything will knock you off balance and knock you back. So, and that's what's happening. It's there for everybody to see, and the way the media is covering it is there for everybody to see. But will we see it?
Well, I want
That's my question, because I'm sorry, the defining, and I've done a podcast about this in my life when I was in college. It's a defining moment of my life. I went on a summer missions to what was then, it was based in Vienna when the Iron Curtain was up. And one of the things we did is we smuggled Bibles and Christian literature into Eastern Europe. And we were caught on the Romanian border with a van full of Bibles and Christian literature. We had just come from Yugoslavia, and I don't know if you know about Romania. Romania was the worst of the worst. And they didn't interrogate us because no one there spoke English except this one lady who wanted nothing to do with it. But they took all our Christian literature into their office, and they've had a soldier guarding us. And if you know anything about the Romanian Revolution at the time, it was the army sided with the people and the security forces sided with the communist government. So this young army private with a gun, only time I've ever had a gun held on me in my life, was by a communist soldier because I had Bibles. So right then was a moment of clarity in my life. But so as soon as all the security forces took all our literature into their office and they were gone, right? And this soldier was guarding us. He turned to us as soon as the security was gone and said, "Do you have a Bible? Can I have a Bible?" And we're like, "No." Oh, oh. And at that moment, I thought, oh, I see what's happening here. We're going to win this. Who are these unwashed Philistines? These
Yeah,
that dare defy the armies of the living God. That was like, oh, okay, a defining moment in my life. That God is bigger than all of this.
yeah.
But the pain that people went through in that process is not to be disregarded or ignored. So, anyways, so that's what I see happening here. It's just like this should be an eye-opening moment. These people have nothing. They are completely lost.
Yeah, they have nothing to believe in, and
nothing
so
to believe in, nothing to offer us as a people. Yeah. We should not be sympathetic with this at all. So,
well, I also, before time is up, I want to share something here for the first time about what was. I mean, there was a lot of significant things that happened on this trip, but I think one of the most, and it hit me just at the moment it was happening. So the beginning of the class session at Georgetown, because I was given the last portion of the class to present what I'm working on, et cetera. But the first portion of the class was this is the first class in academia that my book, not the lookbook, but the translation of Soghomon Tehlirian's memoir, that I and my business partner own the IP, right? It's our possession that we are going to get distributed. It's the first time it's been required reading at any college or anything. It's just been translated to English. This is the first time it's ever been assigned as required reading in the classroom. And in the class session that I came into, they had just had to read it, and now it's for them to give their first impressions. And this is non-Armenians. There's one Armenian in the class, and there's one Turk in the class, and the rest are, true blue American, just kids from, some snowflakes from the country. And they did a circle discussion, and the first question was their impressions of the book. And every single one of those kids, the words coming out of their mouths can be used in marketing and promotional material. They were moved. They loved it. They enjoyed it. They were like, this is incredible. Like, his knowledge, it wasn't just a simple read. This guy knew what he was talking about. He's good writing, and the dramatic nature of it, and the love, the love story, and the courtroom drama was the most incredible. Like, they're just like, it wasn't, this is the end of a semester, and they've had to read a bunch of other stuff, and they weren't like, okay, well, this piece of literature that you forced us to read, blah, blah, blah. No, it read like a novel, they were saying. And so that was to be present, to experience that. It was like a focus group. I got to sit in on the first focus group for this source material that everything is based upon. And man, I'm telling you, it was a seminal moment. It was like, okay, everything was just confirmation of what I've been feeling and believing all along. So, and I'll disclose here, I recorded them. As soon as this one kid starts talking, I'm like, oh, I hit record, and I wasn't being real surreptitious about it. I was violating policy, but I'm like, I have to get this. And I'm glad I did. And then it was brought up, are we being recorded? I'm like, this is for my personal use. This is not, I'm not a social media guy. I'm not posting this anywhere. You're not going to be doxxed. This is blah, blah, blah. You just have to trust me, and I think most of them were satisfied with that, but it was definitely an issue where the Turkish student, she was not happy about it. But it happened. Now I have the footage. All right, Joel, it's I have so much more I want to fill everybody in on.
Yeah,
but
that
if
was
I can-
fast. That was fast
Yeah.
today. So
All right.
good comments,
topic.
everyone. So
Love you all, and we'll see you next time. All right. I'll
Next
talk to
time.
you later, Joel.
hey, Mike.